Welcome to I Wrote That, a podcast where we bring authors and industry experts together to talk about all things books and make the journey to authorship just a little bit easier. My name is Larissa Sowen, and I am the CEO of Next Page Publishing, a hybrid publishing house where we help entrepreneurs write books to grow their businesses. Now, I'm on a mission to help aspiring authors feel like they are in control of the publishing journey and that they are supported by a team of experts who genuinely want the best for them and their books. If you are in the very beginning of your journey, or maybe you have a manuscript that you're finished and you're not sure how to get it out into the world, I encourage you to reach out to us at nextpagepublishing.net. You can schedule your free discovery call and find out how our team of experts can make your journey to being a published author easy, smooth, and successful. Now, without further ado, let's get on to our next amazing guest and make your journey to authorship a little less complicated. Welcome to another episode of I Wrote That, where we bring on authors and industry experts to talk about all things book related and what it takes to really go from that burning idea inside of you to a book that's fully published and in the hands of your ideal reader, and it's boosting your business and it's boosting your brand and it's doing all these wonderful things for you. My name is Larissa Sowen, and I am your host and the CEO of Next Page Publishing, where we help entrepreneurs write those books, get them out of their head, and get them into the funnel and the pipeline in their business so that it can actually start making a difference. Today we have, which is so fun, Laurice Brown, and I shared with her, so my name is Larissa Sowen, but my maiden name is Brown. So I used to be Larissa Brown. This is Laurice Brown. So very excited to have her here. She is an expert at guiding students through the transition from school to work. Her special sauce is guiding students to match their interests to in-demand jobs through her book, I Don't Have to Go to College, discover well-paying jobs that don't require a four-year college degree, and making intangible interpersonal skills easy to understand through her monthly master classes at learnwithlaurice.com. Is that correct? The correct website?
Yes. We'll stick with learnwithlaurice.com. Yes.
Okay, learnwithlaurice.com. Yeah. Welcome, Laurice.
Thank you, Larissa. Our names are very similar. So yes.
It's super fun.
Looking forward to this conversation. I think we're going to have a fun one.
Me as well, because we kind of have two really hot topics that I want to tackle today with you. The first is totally in line with your book. It's you don't need a four-year college degree or a master's or sometimes a doctorate to go and do certain careers. And I think one of the things that I get asked quite often is, oh, do you have a master's in English? Like, you're a publisher, you're an author, you must have some formal education. And I always surprise them when I say, no, I don't. So can you just kind of you're in it way more than I am. That's my whole exposure to it. But walk us through what your rationale is for your book.
So the rationale for the book, similar to what you said, Larissa, is people think that the only funnel to success or accomplishment or achievement is through a four-year college degree or some formal credential. Really, we're just not taught about all the ways you can contribute, both economically, informal other jobs, but also all the ways you can contribute in terms of the freelance or in terms of this learning economy that don't require you to have a formal credential, that just require you to have a story you can speak to and the ability to achieve results. And that's the shift we're operating between, is it's recognizing most of us were told by our parents, the way you're going to be successful, keep your head down, work hard, go to school. That's not entirely true. Sure, that's a path for some people. But what it did for all of us is we don't understand all the opportunities that exist. And that's what the book is about.
Yeah. And I think it's really interesting because I went to a post-secondary school, community college, if you will, for a 2-year advanced diploma in health and safety. So totally not related to what I'm doing now. But now I'm, over a decade later, and I don't even come close to touching that diploma anymore. And it's just, it almost feels like wasted time to me. I did learn a lot and things like that. So when the students are coming to you, they're coming out of high school and they're staring down kind of a fork in the road. What kind of coaching are you giving them?
So I work with students and I also work with counselors. And so what I found, so the coaching, so two things I want to speak to that you said, Larissa, that are key. One, people often, first, I celebrate you for going to community college because people often overlook that when most of the people who are in college anyway are operating from those institutions. What I also celebrate what you did about noting community colleges is community colleges, when we talk about wasted time, we now look at four-year colleges and we recognize the world is moving much quicker than that. You could come in and there's one technology, and by the time you leave, the technology has disrupted the entire industry. That's actually what's happening right now in terms of the tech industry. A lot of people who go to four-year colleges, they go with the understanding, okay, I'm going here because I need to secure a job in tech, finance, consulting, business in some form. But then 4 years later, they recognize this is very different. And you never got those technical skills anyway, whether it was learning sales or advancing the way you use an Excel. Maybe you got an accounting class, but to fully understand the way the world of business is operating. So I wanted to note that in relation to wasted time, it can feel like, okay, academic learning, no matter what college you go to, whether it's a 2-year or 4-year, you're not truly getting grounded skills. The other thing you spoke to, and this goes back to the coaching question, is we have to recognize that this model of I get my credential and then I'm in the economy consistently without other forms of learning, that's over. Really, we live and operate in a world today where we have to ask ourselves, whether formally, hey, I'm going back to school to get this associate's degree, I'm getting a certification through this program, or informally, right? The people are constantly talking about the way the course industry is booming, or even you help people write books, right? The way we learn independently, we have to continue to stay engaged in where the world is changing now. And so that's a lot of helping. So when it comes to coaching students and then helping guidance counselors coach students to find the path, it's answering those two questions. What is the credential you need for something you want to do immediately? Similar to your experience with health and safety. Is that a 4-year college? If not, that's all right. It's really about, if you're interested in technology, sure, you can go to a 4-year. Maybe you'll take an engineering path, but also you could consider cybersecurity. Those are 2-year programs or boot camps, right? It's healthcare. People often assume, oh, healthcare, doctor or nurse. Sure, you can go to a 4-year. That's a prerequisite for med school. Or are you also aware of other nursing programs, whether a nursing program that's 2-year, or a radiologist or a physical therapist, other things that do not require a 4-year college degree? So it's that piece, like what is the credential you can get now? And also, how do you recognize you're going to evolve and just get a language for what is it like to say, oh, this is my new goal. What is that next step I need to take formally or informally to prepare me for that?
Oh, that's so interesting. I want to dive so far into this topic because I have so many questions, but we got to keep it on topic with the book side of it. So many authors or potential authors, they come to me and they have the doubt that I don't have a master's degree. I don't have a master's in English. I don't have whatever. They think they have to have some literary program that they've gone through to be good writers. And I'm constantly in this battle of no. I am the type of person that values lived experience over learned experience every single time. Like if you have gone through something and you've lived it and you've learned from it, then that's the type of experience that I want to write books based on. It's not, I don't want you to write a textbook. That's not what I'm here for. That's not the point of books that connect. So when you wrote your book, you wrote it for a specific audience, the Gen Z audience.
Absolutely.
How did you go about that? Because do you have an English degree, or that's the question I hate getting, but I'm going to ask you now.
I do not have an English degree. My bachelor's was an individual major that combined public policy and philosophy and politics, and then it was Africana studies. I do have a master's in educational leadership, advocacy, and politics, and I am currently studying public policy. I say that to say, I am somebody who, some people see it as an irony, like, oh, you wrote a book and telling students not to go to college, and then you have this, yes, that's exactly why I wrote a book telling people not to go to college. I'm quite familiar with what comes along, like you said, with academic education, and it's more theory. People who go through PhDs, even writing a 5-page paper, first of all, everybody, people's attention spans are not like that. 2, Gen Z will tell you they don't even like their textbooks. They don't read them. The first thing they told me and getting feedback from that group is, they said, Ms. Brown, this has to be skimmable. I mean, like, we'll read your book, but you still need to have it designed in a way where if there's a big takeaway, like, let us know that. The third thing they told me, which is to your point, is people are connected more than ever to stories. And academic writing, both what we learn in our BA programs and our master's program, it is entirely theory. And not just theory. Sometimes, it's theory as this is what we think will happen. But even if it's not theory and it's a research paper, it's very technical in a way where you have to say, okay, where is the takeaway that I should be looking for? It's not to say that's not purposeful. I want to be very clear. It's not to say that, but the purpose, like you said, of a book is connecting with people. And that's far more about storytelling. It's about understanding, like you said, who you are as an author. Why is this your story to tell? Students told me that was very important. And no one's going to listen to you if they feel like they're not connected to you. No one's going to gravitate towards your story if there's not a part of yourself you're willing to reveal. And even in the book, I don't have to go to college. I told students, the reason why I wrote this book is because I, like many people, was just told, you got to get the degree. There's no other way. And so it was important to me as someone who bought into that to say, wait a minute, there's another side to it. And also, we were not only taught to get the degree, and I think this is why people always ask you, like, Larissa, do you have a master's in English? Is because we were taught that the degree was not just authority, but respectability. Only way someone's going to listen to you is if you can say you're formally educated. That's not what success in book writing is about. I can tell you plenty of people who have lots of degrees who write books, and they complain about it now because they're like, I wrote my whole dissertation and no one's reading it. Yeah. And so really it is about what is your lived experience and who do you want to write for? And the authority is that you can help people solve a problem. Or even if you're not formally solving a problem, the authority is community. You're not alone, which is also why I wrote the book.
Yeah. And I think so. There's so much to unpack in that. That was so good. Thank you for all of that, because knowing who you're writing to is like the very first thing that we do in all of our programs. And you've targeted with Gen Z. You just gave me so much. The Gen Z, the group that hate their textbooks, the group that wants storytelling, the group that want bite size. Like, you know who your audience is so well that writing the actual book becomes really, really easy, because you have this really defined outline of what you do. And I want to touch on the design piece because that's so important. I'm reading a book right now. It's massive. It's a hardcover. It's heavy. I'm not used to actually physically holding books, but it's kind of a slog. The story is really interesting. The content is really interesting, but it is just page after page of full text. And it is tiring. It's a big book. And I'm not used to that. And so my brain, despite the fact that it's interesting, despite the fact that I do want to read this book, is really struggling to sit down and pick it up over and over again. Because, and the author could have done, or the design team could have done so much in the way of splitting it out in and making it just feel more bite-sized, like you said, skimmable, so that my poor little ADHD brain, who has a million things on its mind, isn't bogged down by that weight. I really like that you pointed that out. That's very cool. And it's one of the reasons that our design team physically reads the books, because you want your designer to know what the flow of information is. I hate when design teams come in and they're like, okay, tell me what you want. And the author's like, I don't know. Like, my job was to write the book.
Well, Larissa, you're touching on a couple of key things. The first of which is people. So we are in a society now, people's attention spans are shorter. And we like to attribute that to Gen Z and the younger generation, but it's trickled over to adults, right? We're adults. It's trickled over to us too. That's even why songs are shorter now, right? Like even across every industry, they're like, you got to make it more bite-sized. Even how learning programs, they're like, give it to people in bite-sized learning, give people a shorter video. So I would say across the board, people have shorter attention spans. And it's not to say that a longer book, like you said, doesn't have a place. It's still interesting, but then the design, how you break it up, becomes more important. And again, it's contextual, right? People have to remember some of these earlier books, and I went to a boarding school where we read things like The Odyssey or Gulliver's Travels. Like, it was the flex to be like, oh, you're reading this literary book that's longer. Even some of the Harry Potter books, right? They came out, people were like, oh, we want to read longer books. It's not that they don't have a place. It's to say now, as you're talking about, design is critical. How people present that story versus just saying, well, how much can I fit on a page? That's impactful for people. And specifically for my audience, that was just a non-negotiable. I think some audiences people have more flexibility with, but for my audience from the beginning, they were like, we want a bright color. People will notice that the book is turquoise and orange. And they wanted something that was also actionable. So people, when they get the book, they'll realize people read information, but then there's an opportunity to reflect. I won't call them the journal generation, but again, to get away from the idea that they were reading something that was a textbook that was entirely technical, they wanted a space where they could insert themselves into it. And so the format really reflected, I took heavily into consideration the things they thought were important, because that's who ultimately I want to read the book and to engage with the book. So that's absolutely it. You have to think about who you're designing for. You have to think about, we are all more visual now with shorter attention spans? And how does that relate to your audience? How can you make that relevant to them?
Attention, all aspiring authors. Are you ready to turn your book dreams into reality? Look no further than Author Allies, your ultimate companion on the journey to becoming a published author. Picture this: a membership site that offers structure, accountability, skill development, and unwavering support to bring your book ideas to life. That's exactly what Author Allies provides. Dive into weekly writing workshops where you can focus on your goals and stay motivated. Need expert advice? Our monthly Ask the Expert sessions connect you directly with industry professionals for valuable insights. Engage with fellow members through our Beta Reader Switch program, perfect for refining your manuscript before publication. Get access to a list of our verified resources so that when it's time to edit, design, and publish your book, you know where to turn. You can also enhance your craft with our writing training modules. Complete the exercises designed to elevate your skills and participate in the challenges. And as an added bonus, you can enjoy exclusive discounts on our future programs to help you streamline your publishing services. And if you're looking for a little bit more personalized advice, you will have access as a member to our one-on-one coaches to provide tailored support from our experienced professionals. Your literary dreams are within reach within our community of like-minded authors and expert guidance. Visit nextpagepublishing.net to join the membership and create a community around you and your book that guarantees your success.
Yeah, absolutely. And the average length of book that we publish is about 200 pages. And it's kind of two-part. One is the audience, like you said, is shorter attention span. We want to keep things short, bite-sized, and actionable. But the longer the book gets, the more filler we feel we have to add. And so when I sign authors and they're coming in and they're saying, okay, like how do I do this? I'm saying you need a 200-page book, which is about 30,000 words for reference. For those of you that are trying to do the math in your head, it's about 30,000 words. And what that does is it forces the author to not be wordy. You have to get to the point. You got to tell that story, you got to share that learning, and you got to give the action. Like quick, 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 because that's what our audiences want. They don't want long, drawn out information that's redundant and repetitive. And I mean, there's certain elements of that. We do need to repeat ourselves to a certain degree, right? I think it takes like 21 times for us to get used to something, but I'd like to create it as a new habit. But there's ways to do it so that it's not arduous and it's not a 600-page book.
Absolutely, absolutely. And again, going back to I don't have to go to college is actually the fifth book that I wrote. I wrote 4 other books and I'm in the process of changing them. They were about communication, self-management, again, other topics related to work, first-time management, and how to speak up for yourself. And the reason why I don't have to go to college is I'm going to take this style and then use it to translate to my other books in their next version. It's because it does capture exactly what you said. It's the way it's positioned and outlined is what is the point? There's a lot of information, especially in my work from school to work, that's functional that you can give people. Hey, have you tried this one? Speak it up. It's instructional. And it doesn't come off, it's easy for that to come off arduous or to read it and then still not for it to be actionable. And so I do think anyone who is an aspiring author, if you're writing a book, especially that you aspire to be educational, which is what most of my books are, or to guide people to navigate some context, right? Whether that's work or home or some specific context, you do want to think about still what's the point? You know, if we've all read something where we've been like, that was nice. What am I going to do with that?
Mm-hmm.
That was nice. And even if I'm inspired by it, it's like, just what am I going to do? And I would say even that question, what do you want your book to do? If it's inspiring, right? Or is it to take action? Is it simply to let people know they're in community? But having that in my mind helped a lot too, which is what do I want people to do with this? And then having that ethos throughout kept me guided. And one of the last things I did after I got the, the proof was what's not necessary. And I was surprised at how much I was willing to cut when I kept that thought in mind. Like, what is the point of this book? It was easy to eliminate things that just didn't fit.
Yeah. In my world, we call that the vision statement. What is like the 10-word synopsis of what's your big promise? What is it that your book's supposed to do? And we do that in week 2 of our program because, like you said, it is so important. Your whole book writing process becomes easier if you know what the big promise is, because then I'm wordy. I know that I like to tell stories and I like to divulge, and sometimes my train of thought goes woo to the left, and But I always come back to, I set an objective for almost every single chapter that I'm writing. And then I come back to it after I've written the chapter, and I come back to it with the red pen of doom. And I say, okay, this was my objective. Does every single word support that objective? Every sentence, every paragraph, does it support that objective? And yeah, like you said, you'd be surprised how much you end up cutting out, or how
Yes.
much you realize you need to hit on one side and you went too far to the other side. And it's so interesting. No, you're an ideal client for me. You would write my book exactly the way I would coach you to write your book, excuse me, the way I would coach you to write your book. So it's perfect. But you chose deliberately not to go through publishing houses. You didn't even go down the pitching route. You didn't do that. You went self-publishing. And I love that. I love you for that. Good job. I'm so proud of you. But why? Why did you choose that route?
It never crossed. So I will say this: we all operate from some assumption or some concept, right? From something experience. When I was around women or other people who sought that route, the word arduous that you used, that encompasses how I felt it was for them. It was a seeking of validation, right? That process puts you in here. You have to see it here, and I had already previously got a design and put it up, so I knew the process, but also I didn't feel like I needed the validation from someone to say, "Ooh, Larissa, I think this is a good idea." Still, though, to your point, where I think publishing or working with someone would have been helpful is it's easy to underestimate the aspect that, like, where are you marketing repeatedly? Like that more extensive market research, that is something the independent route I didn't do enough of. It's something I'm still in the process of continuously understanding, because we have to continuously get our message out and recognizing, especially for me as someone who's targeting students, who else is in that student ecosystem to get that book, whether it's their parents, whether it is school counselors, whether it's principals, whether it's people at workforce organizations. That's something that I envision working with you. People get a fuller scope of, here's who you're after. At the same time, let's think about this from a market research perspective, not only how to talk to them, but beyond that, how to target them and the people how to get in front of them. But for me, I had the vision. I had done it before. I trusted my designer. I had the group that I wanted to talk to. I wrote it with them to test, is this information the way you can receive it? So I trusted myself and I trusted my vision for the book. And so for me, it was the only option was to go into it.
And you unlocked a lot of benefits by doing it yourself. First of all, timeliness. You were able to get it out on your schedule when you wanted to, when you thought it was ready. A lot of traditional publishers will put deadlines on their authors, and I get why they do it. It's a business, right? They're just there to make money. That is their primary goal of traditional publishing. And that means schedules, and that means deadlines. And sometimes a lot of the authors I work with, they have full-time businesses, right? They're working in their business full-time. They have families, they have, other things going on, hobbies and all of these fun things, that deadlines like that just don't work for them. And what it ends up doing is lowering the quality of the book, because they're trying to rush through it. They're just trying to meet the deadline rather than actually putting in the qualitative time. It becomes quantitative.
Yes.
And it brings that quality down. The second thing you unlocked was the power to do what you wanted to do. The power to write the book the way that you wanted to do, to cut what you wanted to cut, to include what you wanted to include, to format it, to design it. All of these things were within your power. And that's one of the reasons authors hire us, is they don't want to do all of that, but they still want to have the power. You hired a designer. We have designers in our house. Like it's the same gist, except for instead of having me as your prime contractor, you are the prime contractor. You are the one responsible to find all of these experts to help you fill the gaps that you can't do, but you were always in control.
Yes.
Always. And that's so important.
Well, and Larissa, to your point, if this had been, I did 4 books as best as I could, meaning literally first they started off in a PowerPoint, then I was working with an editor, and then I found the graphic designer and put it up. And they were solid books. They just weren't the appropriate narrative I found, right? Like I was using a case study approach, but not talking to my audience enough. So I took those down. Then I did it again and I got better. But when I looked at them and I looked at, I don't have to go to college, I said, ooh, stylistically, to the point we were talking about earlier, it was too wordy. And so it needed to be shorter and it needed to have a style. And that's the other piece that I'm sure you help people with, is now I know my style as an author and I know my style visually. And that was important to me. And I think both those, and I also know some books live and die by their title. I didn't think about that in the beginning. Again, the mind of someone who thought academically from having a certain number of degrees, you don't think human enough. It was like a guide to self-advocacy, sure, or how to speak up at work, right? Like the other thing is you can overthink the process, you can make it jargony, you can forget. It's not about, a book is not about how much you know, meaning as the priority. It's really about, yes, what does this person need to know to transform? It's not about you, right? You're writing a book. Sure, you have a story, but I think academically we can get into the space where it's like, I want to name it like this. Is the person that you want to read the book, are they going to receive it that way? It's like soft skills. There's not a student, there's not even a professional, we've heard it, who comes and is like, Laurice, I'm really struggling with my soft skills. Who does that? They say, I'm struggling with communicating right now specifically. I don't know how to approach this conversation, or I'm a little bit uncomfortable when it comes to conflict. And so I mentioned that because I'm confident one of the things you help people do is really get to the root of like, how is your audience receiving this? Yes, there are ways you think about it, and that's helpful. You are positioned as an authority. And at the same time, how does this resonate with your audience? And that's something that I know now how to do. And I trust myself so deeply to do it. And I imagine that's some place you help authors get to in the process is you do have to trust yourself and trust your style and trust that it works for the people you want to meet, and use that as also your barometer for not comparing yourself to other authors because they have a different audience, or even if they have the same audience, you still have to know what makes you distinguished, and not credential wise, but distinguished in telling your story and getting the result for them that you can get.
Yeah. And I want to point out one thing that you did really, really well in your process too, whether it was accidentally or you knew exactly what you were doing and you're a genius, is having that beta group that you were working with as you were writing they're more of an alpha group at that point, but you're litmus testing with them, right? You're checking with them. What would you want? How does this story land? How do these colors land? The cover, the title, the tagline, everything in that. And that's basically what our team does is we become the alpha and the beta and the developmental editors and all of that things. But for those that are struggling, first of all, maybe you just can't afford to hire a big team like my team. I get that. What you did was awesome. You went straight to your source and you said, how do these things land? And many authors try to write books in isolation. And that's one of the biggest beefs I have is don't write your book alone because it's meant to be read. It's meant for the people.
I think, Larissa, the power of what you work with them in doing is that, there's a lot of errors. I'll speak to the errors. When I wrote the first round of the book, it's easy, like you said, to write in isolation. You have information. A book is not about how much you know. And I'm going to keep going back to that. And as an author, that's what we can get into. How much can I write? How much do I need to tell this other person, almost in this regurgitory space of like, let me get it out. Or like you said, I got it out, but can I say it again some more? It's a thoughtfulness. It's a lens we have to put on. And I had learned about beta groups. I was fortunate because it's entrepreneurial, right? From being an entrepreneur, number one reason things fail is like, who are you talking to? Because if it's not me, I need to, and it's never everybody. I think that's the other piece that we have to accept as authors. It's never everybody, and that's not a knock. It's really about, if you know who you're talking to, how do you serve them deeply and put that lens on? But absolutely, to your point, it's about recognizing in this process, you're writing for someone, and the quicker you can bring them in and get that feedback, the more successful, and by successful, I mean resonant, your book is likely to be. And that's why I feel fortunate is that, of course, I'm always interested in more sales, but I can say one of the things I'm most proud of based on the reviews on Amazon and based on anyone who gets the book is like, no, your book hit the mark.
Yeah.
It's the guide that I wish that I had when I was going through school. It helped me discover certain jobs. I always ask the students, I'm like, okay, so what's the point? The point is you need counseling around this area. Like the point is I know if I want to, whether or not I need to go to a boot camp or get an associate's degree based upon what my interest is. And so I would add one of the things that was important to me as well that I learned as an author is I like quizzes. Those quizzes we all grew up reading, especially in those magazines we used to read growing up, like the
Cosmo. I'm a Cosmo girl through and through. Yeah.
Yes, I learned early how to do that because really, I'm talking to different people. There's a lot of variation among Gen Z. Yes, there's some things they have in common, short attention span. They want certain things presented. These are still humans who all don't want to do the same thing. I'm not writing a book called like, this is the singular path to success in the economy. It's really about how do I help you explore and discover what your path is. And so I would say one thing that helps me remember to be distinguished is always, what do I know and how do I put a quiz or something in there that allows people to see there's different paths. You have options. That's big for me, is
Yeah.
people feeling like I can pick up this book, but Larissa's not going to tell me there's one way. I'm going to find a piece of myself. I'm going to gain awareness about something I didn't know about myself in this book. So
Yeah.
just knowing that for people looking for their style, it can come visually, it can come from, for me, it comes from quizzes, it can come from your story, but there should be some way where you're like, I'm distinguished, and say it confidently.
Yes, I love that. I think even as authors, we need to know what our distinguishing factor is. Like, and that for me, it starts with our goals. Like, what are our goals as an author? Because there's a lot of programs, there's a lot of vanity press out there that will put you into one program and spit out one result. And it's like, whoa, 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 wait, every author is different. Every author wants something different. Every author needs something different. And we also have a quiz that people can do to like figure out like, what's your book bonus? Like if you write a book, what's the biggest thing it can do for you? Like, what do you want it to do for you? Um, it's all gold. And I know you and I could keep going forever because there's so much we've just scratched the surface on, but we do have to wrap it up. So Laurice, how can people get a hold of you again?
So people can find me. So you can go to learnwithlaurice.com. I'm also available. You can connect with me on LinkedIn. That's another way. Or you can just straight up email me at laurice.brown@gmail.com. Happy to connect with you there. And then Instagram, the lights, Instagram, Facebook, I'm everywhere. Now I was gonna say the book is on Amazon. Laurice Brown, I don't have to go to college, discover well-paying jobs that don't require a 4-year college degree.
Excellent. I'm going to put all of those links down in the show notes so you can connect with her. You can grab her book. If you have a student that's coming out of high school, someone that's in the middle of like, they're in those transition years. My husband had a gap year and he ended up going back to school, but he took a gap year. So if you have kids that are in the gap year and you want to like, okay, what are your options? Like realistically, what are your options? We'll make sure all those links are down there. Last question, favorite question. What advice do you have for aspiring authors?
You said something critical in your last question. What is your goal? What's that bonus you want for the book? I wrote the book to build trust with my community and to give a solution. So I would say a lot of people now are in the space saying college is a waste, college is a scam, or there's also people saying you must go. And I felt, to me, people were saying these things to students all online, but then students didn't really have a path to understand, how does this apply to me? And so I would say you really want to understand how do you build trust? What's your way of building trust in a space where, of course, there's probably other people, or there may not be other people, maybe, but you have a story. How do you build trust? That's something that's important to think about, because ultimately you do want people to trust or depend or to feel like what you're saying in your book is reliable.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. Again, we're going to put all the links down in the show notes. You can contact Laurice. And this has been a fabulous conversation. Like I said, you're one of my dream clients. You've done everything the way that we would coach someone to do it, and your results have been beautiful. So congratulations on all that you've done.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode of I Wrote That. Be sure to like, follow, and subscribe to our show so you don't miss any of our upcoming guests. And if this has led you to some inspiration to want to get started on your own authorship journey, whether you just have an idea or you have a manuscript that you're ready to publish, reach out to us at nextpagepublishing.net, and we will match you up with our team of experts to make the journey simple, easy, and smooth.